Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
All right, so we can start with Raghunandan at text 40.
Okay, text 40. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Text 40. Niha Bikaramana Susti Pratava Yuna Vidyati Ya Trayati Mahatu Bahaya. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Okay. So let me get to the purport. Text and purport for 40. Activities. Get my glass. My glass is tall. Activities in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activities find no impediment. Nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begin on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begin in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent result, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%, whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Ajamila performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, there is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:5-17. Yagva swadamam charanam bujam hari aja aputat patitat yad yakim Surataha Abdu Bajatam Swadamata. If someone gives up his Krishna duties and Krishna consciousness and then falls down, what loss is there on his path? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christians say, that what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world and yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and the results end with the body. But work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmin or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Text 41. Uyasvasayatmika buddhi ikihaku nandana bahu shakyahi anantascha bodhayo uyasvasayenam. Translation. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and the aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Uyasvasayika intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 22.62 states, Shraddha Sobde Vivasa Kahi Shudradha Nishchaya Krishne Bhakti Kaili Sava Kama Kritahaya. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna, in Krishna consciousness, he needs not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to families, traditions, humanity, or nationality. Puritive activities are the engagement of one's reaction from past good or bad deeds. When one is awakened in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good result in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material or conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Savam. Iti sa Mahatma Sudalabha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the root of all manifested cause. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches. So by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, activities, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's action, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna. And one should accept the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado, yasyas prasadam nagati kutupi, dayam susvam tasya yasya sri sadhyam, Vandigurushi Vandigurushi Charanara Vindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercies 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. Not theoretically, but practically. When there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in future activities, one who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fugitive.
All right, so you can hold that. And Varun Prabhu, you can continue from 40 to 43. Please accept my obeisances, Blessed Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Continuing from text 40 to 43. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipascheta veda vada partha nanyad astiti vadina kamatmanah swargapara janma karma phala pradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhoga ishvarya gatim prati. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various figurative activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. Purport. People in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the figurative activities recommended in the Karm Kand portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially the Jyotishtoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices. And men with a poor fund of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness. As fools are attached to the flowers of a poisonous trees without knowing the results of such attractions, unenlightened men are similarly attracted to such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. In the Karm Kand section of the Vedas, it is said, Apam Somam Amrita Abhuma and Akshayam Havai Chaturmasya Yajinah Sukritam Bhavati. In other words, those who perform the 4-month penances become eligible to drink the Soma Ras beverages to become immortal and happy forever. Even on this earth, some are very eager to have Somras to become strong and fit to enjoy sense gratification. Such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifices. They are generally sensual, and they do not want anything other than the heavenly pleasures of life. It is understood that there are gardens called Nandan Kanan, in which there is good opportunity for association with angelic beautiful women, and having a profuse supply of Somaras wine. Such bodily happiness is certainly sensual. Therefore, there are those who are purely attached to such material temporary happiness as lords of the material world. Text 44. Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam taya pahrita chetasam व्यवसायत्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विद्यते. In the minds of those who are attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Purport: Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, the Nirukti, says Samyag adhiyatesmin atmatattva yathatmyam. When the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it is said to be in samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyments and bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. Text 45. त्रैगुण्या विषय वेद निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थो निर्योगः क्षेम आत्मवान्. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjun, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Purport: All material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of material nature. They are meant for fruitive results, which cause bondage in the material world. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. Arjun, as a student and friend of Lord Krishna, is advised to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where in the beginning there is Brahma Jigyasa, or questions on the supreme transcendence. All the living entities who are in the material world are struggling very hard for existence. For them, the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom advising how to live and get rid of the material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karm Kand chapter, are finished, then the chapter for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are a part of different Vedas, as the Bhagavad Gita is a part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn to tolerate in the face of dualities such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness, when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. Text 46. यावन् अर्थ उताबाने सर्वतः कम्प्लुतोदके तावन् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्रह्मण्यस्य विजानतः. All purpose served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Veda can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. Purport: The rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Karm Kand division of the Vedic literature are meant to encourage gradual development of self-realization. And the purpose of self-realization is clearly stated in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 15:15. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Lord Krishna, the primeval cause of everything. So self-realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with him. The relationship of the living entities with Krishna is also mentioned in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 15:7. The living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, revival of Krishna consciousness by the individual living entity is the highest perfectional stage of Vedic knowledge. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33-7 as follows. Aho bata shwa pacho to garyan यज्जिह्वाग्रे वर्तते नमातुभ्याम् ते पुस्तपस्ते जुहुवुः सस्नुरार्या ब्रह्मानुचुर्नमगृह्णान्ति ये ते. O my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family like that of a Chandal, dog-eater, is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. Such a person must have performed all kinds of penances and sacrifices according to Vedic rituals and studied the Vedic literatures many, many times after taking his bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. Such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. One must be intelligent enough to understand the purpose of the Vedas without being attached to the rituals only, and must not desire to be elevated to the heavenly kingdoms for a better quality of sense gratification. It is not possible for the common man in this age to follow all the rules and regulations of the Vedic rituals, nor is it possible to study all of the Vedanta and the Upanishads thoroughly. It requires much time, energy, knowledge, and resources to execute the purposes of the Vedas. This is hardly possible in this age. The best purpose of Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, the deliverer of all fallen souls. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by a great Vedic scholar, Prakashananda Saraswati, why he, the Lord, was chanting the holy name of the Lord like a sentimentalist instead of studying Vedanta philosophy, the Lord replied that his spiritual master had found him to be a great fool, and thus asked him to chant the holy name of the Lord Krishna. He did so and became ecstatic like a madman. In this age of Kali, most of the population is foolish and not adequately educated to understand Vedanta philosophy. The best purpose of Vedanta philosophy is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. Vedanta is the last word in the Vedic wisdom, and the author and knower of the Vedanta philosophy is Lord Krishna. And the highest Vedantist is the great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all Vedic mysticism.
All right, so you can hold that. And so text 47. Karmani eva rikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhur mate sangoshto karmani. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So forth. There are three considerations here: prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. Prescribed duties are activities enjoined in terms of one's acquired modes of material nature. Capricious work means actions without the sanction of authority. And inaction means not performing one's prescribed duties. The Lord advised that Arjuna not to be inactive, but that he perform his prescribed duty without being attached to the result. One who is attached to the result of his work is also the cause of the action. Thus, he is the enjoyer or sufferer of the result of such actions. As far as prescribed duties are concerned, they can be fitted into three subdivisions, namely routine work, emergency work, and desired activities. Routine work performed as an obligation in terms of the scriptural injunctions without desire for results is action in the mode of goodness. Work with results becomes the cause of bondage. Therefore, such work is not auspicious. Everyone has proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the result. Such disinterested, obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. Arjuna was therefore advised by the Lord to fight as a matter of duty without attachment to the result. His non-participation in the battle is another side of attachment. Such attachment never leads one to the path of salvation. Any attachment, positive or negative, is cause for bondage. Inaction is sinful. Therefore, fighting as a matter of duty was the only auspicious path of salvation for Arjuna. 48. Raghunandan, can you mute, please? Yogashta kuru karmani sangam chaktva dhananjaya siddhi asiddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Perform your duty equipoised, Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to the sources of failure, to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord, and because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such he is participating in the Varnashram Dham institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in Varnashram Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. And 49. Durena hi avaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddhau sharanam itanvicha kripana palahetava. O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. And purport. One who has actually come to understand one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord gives up all engagement save working in Krishna consciousness. As already explained, Buddhi Yoga means transcendental loving service to the Lord. Such devotional service is the right course of action for the living entity. Only misers desire to enjoy the fruits of their own work just to be further entangled in material bondage. Except for the work in Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable because they continually bind the worker to the cycle of birth and death. One should therefore never desire to be the cause of work. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. Misers do not know how to utilize the assets of riches which they acquire by good fortune or by hard labor. One should spend all energies working in Krishna consciousness, and that will make one's life successful. Like misers, unfortunate persons do not employ their human energy in the service of the Lord. Text 50. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yogaya yujyasva yoga karmashu kaushalam. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Sri Krishna in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. Alright, so Raghunandan, you can continue from text 51. Alright.
Audible. Text 51. Kamajam buddhi yuktahi palam tuyakva manisinaha janma banda vinimukta padam gachanti anamayam. Translation. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond the miseries by going back to Godhead. Purport. The liberated living entities belongs to the place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavad Gita 10:14-58 says, Samasrita ye pada palava plavam mahat padam punya yasu murari pavam buddhi vatsa padam puaram padam yadvi padam natisham. For one who has accepted the boot of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of Mukti, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. Out of ignorance, only less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the result action will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, namely both death, old age, and disease, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental love and service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material, miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes a Lord himself and thus paved the way for repetition of birth and death. But one who understands that his position is to serve, transfer himself to the service of the Lord at once, becomes eligible for Vaikuntha's Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Kama Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. Text 52. Yadati muhakalilam Budhe uyati tarisyati tadagantasi nividam shutas uyas shutasya cha shutasya cha. Translation: when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. Purport: there are many good examples in the lives of great devotees of the Lord, of those who become indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas simply by devotional service to the Lord. When a person factually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent to the rituals of fruitive activity. Even though an inexperienced Brahman, Srimadhavendra Puri, a great devotee and acharya in the line of the devotees, says, Sadhya Vandana Bahadram Astu Bhavatu Buhu Snana Tubhyam Namo Vodeva Pitarascha Tapana Vidhu Naham Kamsa Kam Kisham Yatam Yatra Kuvapi Nisadya Yadava Kulutamasaya Kamsa Duisa Smaram Agham Harami Tad Alam Manyikim Anyenami. O my prayers, 3 times a day, all glories to you. O Bhavin, I offer my obeisance unto you. O demigods, O forefathers, please excuse me for any inability to offer you my respect. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendants of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and there I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. The Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for neophytes, comprehending all kinds of prayers 3 times a day, taking a bath early in the morning, offering respect to the forefathers, etc. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles because he has already attained perfection. If one can reach the platform of understanding by service to the Supreme Lord, he has no longer to execute different types of penance and sacrifices, as were recommended in the revealed scripture. And similarly, if one has not understood that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engage in his rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagement. Person in Krishna consciousness transcends the limit of Sabda Brahma, or the range of the Vedas and Upanishads.
You can hold it. And Rune Prabhu, you can continue from text 53.
Ruti Vipra Upannate Yada Sthasyati Nischala Samadhav Achala Buddhis Tada Yogam Avapsyasi. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Purport: to say that one is in samadhi is to say that one has fully realized Krishna consciousness. That is, one in full samadhi has realized Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. The highest perfection of self-realization is to understand that one is eternally the servitor of Krishna and that one's only business is to discharge one's duties in Krishna consciousness. A Krishna conscious person or unflinching devotee of the Lord should not be disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, nor be engaged in furtive activities for promotion to the heavenly kingdom. In Krishna consciousness, one comes directly into communion with Krishna, and thus all directions from Krishna may be understood in that transcendental state. One is sure to achieve results by such activities and attain conclusive knowledge. One has only to carry out the orders of Krishna or his representative, the spiritual master. Text 54. अर्जुन उवाच स्थिता प्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितादिः किं प्रभाषेत किम asita vrajeta kim. Arjun said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk? Purport. As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation, similarly, one who is in Krishna consciousness has his particular nature: walking, talking, walking, thinking, feeling, etc. As a rich man has his symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, as a diseased man has his symptoms by which he is known as diseased, or as a learned man has his symptoms, so a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings. One can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad Gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks, for speech is the most important quality of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak, and certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks, but as soon as he speaks he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow as stated below. Text 55. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmani Evatmana Tushta Sthita Pragyas Tadochyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Parth, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in his self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Purport. The Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all the good qualities of great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendently situated has no good qualifications, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoctions. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desires manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped, but if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for this devotional service will instantly help one onto the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Such a transcendentally situated person has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. Text 56. दुःखेष्व अनुविघ्नमानः सुखेषु विगता स्पृहा वित्तरागाभयक्रोधः sthita dhir munir uchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Purport: the word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. नासवृषिर् यस्य मातं न भिन्नम्. Mahabharat 1 Parva 313117. But a Sthita Dhir Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Sthita Dhir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashanta Nihishesha Manorathantara. Stotra Ratna 43, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Shri Krishna or Vasudev is everything. Vasudevah sarvam iti sa mahatma durlabha. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries by the grace of the Lord are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination.
All right, so you can hold that. And text 57. Ya sarvatrana vishnisas tat tat prapya shubha shubham nave nandati nadveshti tasya pragya pratishtita. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Purport. There is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil, because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil, because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position, technically called samadhi. Text 58. Yada samharate chayam kurmon ganiva sarvasha indriyan indriyartebhyas tasya pragya pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Purport. The test of a yogi, devotee or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely without and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the do nots, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can, at any moment, wind up its senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious person are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Arjuna is being taught here to use his senses for the service of the Lord instead of for his own satisfaction. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps his senses within. All right, so Raghunandan, you can read from text 59.
Audible, text 59. Vishaya Vinratan Batan Maharatyadi Vina Rasa Vacham Rashuki Rasa Param Van Rasa Buddha embodies full deeply restricted enjoyment. The taste or sense objects remain, but ceasing such engagement by experiencing a higher taste is fixed in consciousness. Purport. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulation is something like restricting a disease person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Sanga yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc. is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are therefore the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancements of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses the taste for pale things. Text 60. Ya tatu hi api kuntiya pusaya vipasita indriyani paramatini aranti prasabham manaha. Translation. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man, carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Purport.
All right, you can hold there, and Varun Prabhu, you can finish us up tonight.
We are at okay, yeah, text 60, right? Purport of the text 60. I think you're on mute, Prabhuji. I think it's text 60, the purport.
Yeah, the beginning of the purport. There are many lineage surges,
Yeah.
philosophers and transcendents.
Sorry, I got lost track. Purport. Text 60 purport. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment, although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control with severe type of penances and yoga practice. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot see such material engagements. A practical example is given by Sri Yamunacharya, a great saint and devotee, who says, Yad avadhi mama cheta Krishna pada ravinde nava nava rasa dhamani udyatam rantum asit. तद अवाधि बता नारी संगमे स्मर्यमाणे भवति मुखा विकारः सुषु निष्ठिवानं cha. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it and I spit at the thought. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendentally nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man has satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatables. Maharaj Ambarish also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Savai manah Krishna pararavindayor vachamsi vaikuntha gunanu varanani.
All right, so we can stop here tonight. And it means that we stop to text 60. And we're going to go ahead and continue on the next reading, which should be next week, from text 61. All right, so basically what's being talked about here is when one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in a relationship to the material world with obligations to family, traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagement of one's reactions from past good and bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. So, a lot of devotees, when they came to Krishna consciousness, their families became dissatisfied with them and thinking that, they have so many things to do and they are not doing it. But because of their engagement in Krishna consciousness, they become great devotees and very strong preachers upholding this Krishna consciousness movement. So, the thing is, when one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. All the results of his activities are for the purpose of satisfying Krishna. So it says, as such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, One should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master. So that's Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Navati Kutupi Kayam Subham Tasya Yasastri Sanyam Mande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. So men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to the heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. And we can notice that among the Hindus and even among many Christians and Muslims, basically they're performing activities so that they can get better results in this life and then good birth and power and so forth in the following life. So they can get elevation to the heavenly planets and after that good birth and power and nice, they want a nice situation. So they're thinking that the purpose of these Vedas is to satisfy their desire for self-gratification in this life and in the next life. So being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they actually think that there is nothing more than this. So many people, you can't convince them that there's a need for Krishna consciousness. They're busy in this pursuit. And then Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. He says, O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. So people who want more and more, they're gathering this up for themselves. They want to show, according to their minds and hearts and their situation, that I have accumulated so much. But what's the reason for accumulating so much? If one utilizes his wealth and his riches and his abilities in the service of the Supreme Lord, then he's utilizing it properly. So it says here, since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated various reactions of his good and bad work, and as such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. But one's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of Bhagavad Gita, and that Bhagavad Gita teaches one to surrender unto the Lord Sri Krishna in all respects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. So Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, which is the purifying process of resultant action. And here a verse is quoted which says, from one who has accepted the abode of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and as famous as Mukunda, the giver of mukti, the ocean of material world is like the water contained in a calf's hoofprint. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger at every step. And then Krishna also says, when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you should become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. So a person who is convinced in Krishna consciousness, like it is said, when one comes to the Srimad Bhagavatam, before one comes to the Srimad Bhagavatam, all of the scriptures might seem important, but when one comes to the Bhagavatam, all of them lose their importance. So, here, when your intelligence has passed out of that dense forest of delusion, then you'll become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. You only want to hear the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. And then Madhavendra Puri prays, O my prayers 3 times a day, all glories to you. O bathing, I offer my obeisances to you. O demigods, O forefathers, please excuse my inability to offer you my respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. He says, I think this is sufficient for me. And Krishna says further on, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. So one who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. And here it is said that though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. And that's the param drishva nivartati, that higher taste. So if one gives up bad activities, he can do it for a little while and then he comes back to it. Like some people, especially like the Hindus, they don't eat meat and any kind of don't eat fish or eggs when they are doing their pujas. But then as soon as that is finished, they delve right back into it. And that's because the taste for those sense objects remains, even though they were restricted from that sense enjoyment for some time. But here Krishna says, ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, which is the taste of Krishna consciousness, then he becomes fixed in his consciousness and he no longer wants to go back to those sense gratificatory processes. So we can stop here tonight, and does anyone have any comments or questions, realizations on the subject matter? Alright, so if not, we can stop here tonight. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanand ji, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari